Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we actually did quite a lot, actually. Like, for instance, about the fact that we did somehow manage to tackle through 2 plays in Journey Informs within Floor 4, which not only takes place in Ninjutsu, the Art of Flames, but also with the forms of the Stolen Statue, and meanwhile, we also did manage to able to went into the basement floor by tackling through 2 more plays, which there are the Dark Prison and the Dangerous Trap, and on top of that, the Dark Ninja and the Legion of Guards. So, overall, I think, suffice to say, we're now on to the halfway point in terms of progressioning-wise for the likes of the forms of the basement floor, basically. Because as far as I'm aware, we've already got about 5 more sparklers left until we basically decided able to, well, save that particular discussion until for later. So because of that though, yeah, today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be exploring for the forms within Floor 4, and this time we're going on to a new play of any sorts, and this time what appears to be based off from Kung Fu. To be more specifically, a Kung Fu tale. So no matter what though, I think suffice to say this is going to be the 10th transformation we can able to turn into. So suffice to say though, this will be the last time for now anyway, that we'll start the actual play up as in traditional Peach right here. And then eventually at some point, if we get onto the forms of that particular podium, then we can obviously turn into something. So because of that though, something tells me is about the fact that the entire structure of the entire play plays out to be, it almost inspires by the Kung Fu Panda vibes to me, because no matter what though, I get the strong sense of feeling it also kind of reminds me of the forms of the exact same tone as the forms of Ninja Peach, except the fact that obviously we can no longer doing some stealthing from now on, because potentially speaking now is about the fact that we've already done the majority of the forms of Ninja Peach plays. So no matter what though, I honestly do really enjoy Ninja Peach. So, if I can imagine about the fact that if we try to able to turn into something like Kung Fu, for instance, then obviously it'll be a lot more cooler than I was expecting. So, with that being said, it's about the fact that, well, obviously if you couldn't tell already, it's about the fact that when it comes to the forms of the actual length of this particular plot, jeez Louise, this is the reason why that it took so long to able to actually get the actual process going for the likes of Princess Peach Showtime, because no matter what though, this is by far the longest part we've ever done so far, mainly because, as far as I'm aware, once we're done with the forms within a Kung Fu tale, then obviously though something tells me is about the fact that not only we can able to actually tackle through Act 2 of Detective Peach at some point, but also I get the strong sense of feeling I'm also able to also tackle through Act 3 for Detective Peach as well, so just to ensure for the fact that it will be super duper lengthy, which I was originally trying to able to save up with that particular 3rd act in Journey Informs within Detective Peach. I almost said Detective Pikachu for some reason, because it's almost like the exact same vibes between, you know, both Detective Peach as well as Detective Pikachu, although the only difference is about the fact that obviously though we don't have to worry about quick time events and all that stuff, and also in addition to that though is that several of solving mysteries is actually self-explanatory in Journey Informs of this game in particular. So, and obviously though is about the fact that we can't able to actually open up the doors for this point, because obviously though we need to able to go through here and trying to dodge a lot of those obstacles around here, and as far as I'm aware, for that particular hole over there, as we just walked past from earlier, I believe that's a bottomless pit, so we don't want to able to actually fall in there, because otherwise it'll be quite reckless. So either way, so we somehow activate the actual door opening while trying to able to avoid those particular podiums or something. So either way though, let's just go and get onto the actual standing podium, and that way we should be able to actually try to able to turn into the 10th transformation. Jeez, it's like there are so many transformations that Peach can turn into, so let's see what the 10th transformation actually contains. Whoa, this looks super duper cool with that particular transformation. So here we go, folks. Here's the forms of the 10th transformation in this game. And believe it or not, that's what appears to be Kung Fu Peach. So as a result, yeah, it almost inspires by Kung Fu Panda a little bit. So, in fact, funny story actually, is about the fact that whenever I managed able to went to see Kung Fu Panda 4, ever since about a couple of weeks ago, that as it turns out, before the actual film starts, that basically, out of nowhere, that whenever we get to the point on the final stretch of the advertisement bit, or advertising, basically though, out of nowhere, they did show us Princess Peach Showtime just before Kung Fu Panda 4 actually starts, and something tells me about the fact that the reason why that exists anyway is most notably because that Kung Fu Peach was actually part of the transformation, or perhaps even maybe, just maybe, that Jack Black always seems able to think about Peaches for one of those songs in the Super Mario Bros. Movie vibes or something like that. So, pretty crazy, doesn't it? So with that being said though, is about the fact that we must make our way to the actual, the Great Palace itself. So just to ensure about the fact that we need to save an Emperor. So we need to able to try to stop the forms of the Kung Fu Master. So that way we'll pretty much get able to save the day, basically. At least, specifically in Act 1. Because then again though, we have to go through, a serious amount of stuff for about 3 times, so, and this is where we have to deal with the forms of the combat mechanic for the sake of Kung Fu Peach, where basically you have to pay attention to the forms of the visual cue, where basically when the actual outlined circle gets even closer to shrink, or in some cases when it goes like inner circle or something, basically that's your chance to able to actually do a quick time event, basically, because otherwise though, if you failed that particular timing aspect, then obviously you can keep on trying all over again. So just to ensure about the fact that it actually encourages you to able to actually deal with like multiple attempts for able to try to able to succeed for that particular technique. So anyway, yeah, let's get to the forms of the actual specific topic at this point, while we able to kick their Sour Bunch's butt. So no matter what though, despite the fact I get out able to still looking for not only certain secrets every once in a while, so just in case we need to pay attention to the forms of specific spotlights as was shown here, and that way we can able to actually access the bonus area. Well, usually relatively speaking though, in here though, we just got able to actually just go platform to platform, so just in case we can able to grab some coins from here and there. So everything else checks out there. So anyways, a few things I want to talk about this is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 2nd of May today, in some cases in 2024 today. And guess what, everybody? Only 21 more days to go until Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is definitely coming. So because of that though, still I'm very excited about that, and I'm sure that any other players out there were also going to be excited about this as well. And recently, during the Informs Within today actually, that Endless Ocean Luminous has recently came out today for the Nintendo Switch from all over the world. So no matter what though, how is the reception actually turns out to be for Endless Ocean Luminous? And oh boy, the reviews of that particular game, oh ouch, is actually gone pretty bad recently, which I'm not gonna lie about the fact that when it comes to the forms of critics alike, that basically though, they've just been, well, 2 of those reviewers are actually being too harsh about the game. Like, for instance, about the fact I've only found some reviewers out there, like, for instance, IGN somehow gives the game 4 out of 10, and on top of that, with Game Reactor, did receive the game 5.5 out of 10, and meanwhile for Shaq News, did somehow receive the game 7 out of 10, which I suppose that's the only good score I can probably think about it. But aside from all that stuff though, yeah, it is pretty unexpected whenever I see the actual specific genuinely unfavorable reviews during the forms of, you know, the last brand new Nintendo Switch game as of now, until God knows if they decided able to actually reveal some new ports or anything else like that, even though it's a bit tricky to tell, because as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that, oh yeah, that reminds me of something. Well, suffice to say, for those of you who lived in the UK, I'm happy to report about the fact that, well, I was able to celebrate one of those games' 10th anniversary recently, which, yes, as it turns out, happy 10th anniversary of the game's release of Mario Golf World Tour for the Nintendo 3DS. And while looking back on it though, even to this day, after 10 years since when it first came out, I still managed able to enjoy myself playing Mario Golf World Tour, because usually, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I do remember back then that I was incredibly hyped about the forms of not only we can able to experience Mario Golf again at long last after the 10-year, well actually, I think it was a 10-year hiatus where it comes to that particular 10-year gap where it comes to the forms of Mario Golf Advanced Tour, where it does able to actually feature some RPG elements to the mix, and on top of all that stuff though, with unique characters to the table. Like, for instance, I can't really remember what the unique characters are in Mario Golf Advanced Tour, because mind you, it's been a very long while since I actually have last played that game, because the last time I actually played that game is what I did manage to test out with my Game Boy Advance link cable, so I can able to actually unlock not only Luigi, but also with Waluigi and Wario in Journey forms have been well, Advanced Tour, as soon as I'm able to do some tasks here and there, where it comes to likely trying to get some more birdie badges or anything else to be more specific, because normally when you start the game off, that basically though, you obviously have to select Mario, Peach, Yoshi, and Donkey Kong from the get-go, whilst usually from any other characters like Luigi, Waluigi, Wario, and Bowser essentially. You have to unlock them by simply able to try to activate the Game Boy Advance cable link, so that way you can able to try to do just that. And also you have to accomplish the forms of trying to get some birdie badges, or eagle badges, or let's just say hole-in-one badge, as well as the forms of albatross as well. So just to ensure for the fact that once you get enough, then obviously you would able to actually unlock the 4 remaining characters from the Mario cast. So yeah, that seems quite legitimate. And kind of thinking about it is about the fact that since we are still in 2024 actually, that one marks the 20th anniversary of the actual game's release of Mario Golf Advanced Tour for the likes of the phones of the Game Boy Advance, and as far as I'm aware, that could be also applied for the European version of Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. And eventually at some point later on in this year, we can pretty much guarantee to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the game's release of Mario Power Tennis for the GameCube version. So because of that though, well, it wasn't until when 2009 roll around where basically the Wii New Play Control port did somehow exist. So, oh yeah, there's also another thing I want to point out as well that I surprisingly forgot to comment on back in Journey Forms of about a couple of weeks ago potentially, is that, did you guys know about the fact that for those of you who own Pikmin 2 for the Wii, specifically not only in Japan, but also in the European countries as well. It's been 15 years ago since when Pikmin 2 for a new play control version on the Wii did somehow came out, which it wasn't until in 2012. I felt it was a little bit odd back in 2012, where basically though the Americans did receive that particular port 3 years later, which is very, very unexpected with that particular release time schedule. But apart from those aside things though, while looking back on the Wii version on Pikmin 2, despite the fact I still haven't exactly played that much, just because I'm still, you know, playing for a bunch of Mario stuff, as well as the forms of Sonic stuff every once in a while, just before certain games is about to be fast approaching. And on top of all that stuff though, it's just about the fact that I always like to able to sit back and relax, to able to actually experience playing certain Zelda games every once in a while, just in case I can able to actually get myself some good old reading skills. So exponentially, if I struggle reading, then obviously I can able to bring Twilight Sparkle, so that way she can able to be pretty good at reading in general. So anyway, so that pretty much does it for Act 1. For the likes of Kung Fu Peach, so of course we will able to expect able to turn into Kung Fu Peach until specifically on the 5th floor, in addition to the forms of the basement floor as well. So yeah, that's all I can really say about it. So let's move on to the next play in terms of the forms within the 4th floor, and that's what appears to be the case of the Rainy Day plot. So, and something tells me it's about the fact that we must able to once again solve some mysteries. So in fact, it's been quite some time since we've actually became Detective Peach since on the second floor. So, except no matter what though, like I said before, is that according to the forms of the video's length, it's actually going to get ridiculously long, because obviously, this is the prime example where it comes to able to experience not only one, but two detective acts in journey forms within specific, well, you get the idea for that point. So, anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that despite the fact that when it comes to the forms of, another thing I want to point out as well, that, I believe, fundamentally speaking now, out of nowhere, that, it looks like we're about to be receiving a yet another movie exclusively onto Paramount Plus, except this time what appears to be by the forms of a, Loud House movie, which, as a result, the subtitle was actually gonna call it, No Time to Spy, Loud House, which, kind of think about it, it's almost like a huge inspiration from James Bond, specifically No Time to Die. So, relatively speaking, though, I have no idea they somehow get that film's existence anyway. So, oh, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that with the most recent series did somehow came out, since in journey forms of about a couple of weeks ago, which appears to be known as Fallout, based off from the video games and stuff like that. Like, usually, relatively speaking, though, is that Fallout, as far as the series are concerned, on Amazon Prime, for I've heard anyway, it did somehow receive 94%, according to the forms of tomato meter, likely for Rotten Tomatoes website. So, yeah, it did receive the best review scores, and it actually is one of the best video game TV shows ranked by Tomato Meter, so, or Tomato Radar Meter, depending on what specific pronunciations you want to go for. So, either way, it's actually quite insane to able to actually get that particular score in mind. So, anyways, let's solve this mystery right here, so we can able to double check off that specific hint or clue, so that way we can able to receive a yet another ribbon. So, eventually, certain cases might be a little bit tricky at first, but when you're trying to able to memorize, like as you probably already expect, that I did somehow manage to able to practice this on my own time for a bit, so just in case I don't want to get confused or lost. So, however though, if you manage to able to solve the wrong clue, then obviously though you lose one heart. So, yeah, and eventually at some point, that I won't try to show this off until whenever we finish up everything first, because, you know, relatively speaking, though, again, if I somehow miss something, then obviously, though, I'll be back for this stage eventually. So, because of that, though, that won't be for a long while, though, especially noticeable, because, relatively speaking, though, I'm pretty sure about the fact that Piglet, he's almost going to be finishing up everything for the mission mode for Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing before we move on to the next batch of Let's Plays. Well, to be more accurate, though, it's likely for 2 new Let's Plays is about to be coming up soon, or anything else like that. So, again, I do apologize for my comment take, it's a little bit slightly iffy, because obviously my tongue, for some reason, just keeps on going in twirl mode for some reason, because still, I'm a frog form, of course, so typical tongues these days. So, I'm guessing because I've almost got distracted by the forms of specific, insects are flying around in my room at the moment, so I might try to able to actually eat them as much as I can, because after all, I'm a frog, of course. So either way, let's go into this bonus area right here, and exponentially we can able to find a yet another sparkle gem just on this little box crate right here, so we can able to try to do the usual holding down the B button as much as we can. And there we go. And, anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that there are so many dislike aspect ratio 24/7, because do you guys even remember during the Informs event yesterday, that, yes indeed, we did somehow got ourselves a teaser trailer up right now, for the likes of the forms of Mufasa the Lion King, and believe it or not though folks, there are so many dislikes 24/7, like it doesn't really matter what specific uploads they have, likely also for different channels, including Walt Disney Studios itself. So no matter what though, yeah, apparently though it did somehow receive For what I've double-checked anyway, for the Walt Disney Studios version of that particular teaser trailer for its YouTube channel, it did somehow receive 53k likes and, well, 71k dislikes, meaning 71,000 dislikes. So, which I honestly agree to that particular agreement, because, you know, as far as I'm aware, I'm just so sick of the forms of Disney live-action movies at this point, because, well, as you probably already expect, well, I've seen the actual trailers again, or specifically the teaser trailer again, that I've now come to realize about the fact that I much rather prefer seeing Sonic the Hedgehog 3 a lot more than the forms of that particular soulless particular film coming up. Because, again, they've never actually fixed any of those emotions, just like the forms of how it does it on the, well, the 2019 remake of The Lion King, which, yeah, I'm so sick and tired of this particular bare bones effort right there, because no matter what though, yeah, it's gonna be dull. Like, I just can't stress enough about the fact that, well, luckily though, what I've noticed something about this is that there was actually a YouTube channel out there called Galaxy Geeks, where basically he did somehow questioning something. Which film are you going to be watched first in December? And the majority of the people out there saying Sonic the Hedgehog 3, because obviously everyone else, myself included, are going to be super duper hyped about the films of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie as the actual film itself, whilst usually if I've double checked on it so far, it did somehow receive the majority of the votes, as in 87% of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, meanwhile for the Mufasa the Lion King receives 13%. So because of that though, yeah, I could totally see why that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is going to be super duper exciting, at least to me. So, anyway, and there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that, generally speaking though, is that do you guys know about the fact that recently that Sega has already previously announced that Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, Shinobi, as well as Streets of Rage, and Crazy Taxi are all going to be bringing revived, and actually as it turns out, that, as far as I can definitely tell, that it's not going to be on the original Switch 1. So instead, it's going to be landing on unannounced Switch 2. So it'll make sense, because obviously, though, with the graphics and everything, plus not to mention, though, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure at this point in time that Nintendo is basically done working on specific titles for the Nintendo Switch 1 just before we move on to Nintendo Switch 2, perhaps. So even then, though, again, it'll make sense for certain context, because obviously though is about the fact that we have to move on now for the likes of the forms of not only new game announcements during that specific period, but you know, you get the idea for this point. So, and as you can see right there on this particular scene right here, that basically we're going to be able to explore into the majority of the clock tower, or specifically like Big Ben. So it almost kind of reminds me of the forms of the exact same vibes almost, as in not only Basil the Great Mouse Detective, but it's also about the fact that, well, it's hard for me to say about this personally though, because as far as I'm aware, it's been about 2 days ago since I actually have last played this for sure. Although, relatively speaking though, at this point in time, is that I think we are almost getting pretty close up to this point. Although, as far as the actual progression, as far as I'm concerned, it might take a bit while to try to complete this though, as a matter of fact, when it comes to able to go for 400% completion, because like I said before, there's still more ways to go, because as far as I'm aware is that, well, we're probably not going to explain about that right now, because obviously though, it will able to actually feature some spoiler elements to it. So, anyway, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. And also, since we are May right now, obviously no matter what though, enduring around that time until by the end of May, it will mark the 5th year anniversary of the beta version of Mario Kart Tour, which as a matter of fact though, we'll probably save that particular topic until God knows if we're able to actually do 2 new Let's Plays until at some point, and also eventually some more parts for the likes of Princess Peach Showtime, basically. So, what I must say though, is that the actual progression timing so far in Princess Peach Showtime feels a lot more better than I thought it was going to. Because as far as I'm aware, unlike Yoshi's Crafted Worlds, despite I do still like that game, but it's just about the fact there's a lot of tedium involved, ranging from souvenir hunting in case if you really want to go after some smiley flowers, and on top of all that stuff though, there's a lot of emphasis on backtracking here and there, and on top of all that stuff, that I still am not a big fan of the soundtrack in, not just by the forms of Yoshi's Crafted World, but it's also with, Yoshi's New Island as well, because, my god, the bazookas sounds really off, especially noticeable because, well, I just aren't able to actually think about the actual soundtrack ever again. So, yeah, end of story, basically. Okay then, so yeah, oh by the way, every once in a while is that since I did somehow found some more corporates right here, hiding somewhere behind those gears, that will basically gives me the opportunity to get some more sparkle gems here and there. Well, this is interesting, because obviously though, despite that one of those specific gears has been broken, so no matter what, we have to borrow this particular gear, so that way we can able to actually open up the actual, the duck. So, either way, so that way we can able to do just that. And exponentially, we can able to actually just grab the key. Although, despite the fact that we can't physically grab the key, so we have to able to press the B button at all times. So not only can able to actually pick up specific items, just like the forms of how it does it in Act 1, in Detective Peach anyway, but it's also about the fact that in order to able to actually activate, to insert the key and everything, you have to press the B button again, or the A button, depending on what specific button configuration you can able to set things out. So, but anyway, also, there's another thing I want to point out as well. I'm pretty sure we've only got about 15 more days to go until My Little Pony at Several Heights Mystery is also going to be releasing, and it's almost just around the corner as well. So, yeah, I got nothing to say about that, I guess. Oh my goodness, there was a bomb right inside of the actual bell. So, exponentially, everything else is all hunky-dory and everything. Well, I have no idea why we somehow be happy about this, because obviously we need to hurry things up before the bomb explodes. Although, thankfully though, since we've actually got ourselves one last sparkle gem, I'm pretty sure this particular scene right here is basically automated. So because of that though, we don't have to press anything. So yeah, everything else will be pretty simple for the most part. So, and I've obviously have no idea why they've got ourselves some bit of stilt scenes like this right here. So either way, that basically does it for Act 2 for Detective Peach. So, yeah, case closed, at least for now, because then again, since we've somehow completed both acts in Journey Forms within Detective Peach, then obviously though we can able to now go into Act 3 for the sake of Detective Peach. So, and once we're done with that, so I think I should probably focus on that next. And something tells me we can able to take on the next boss fight. So, of course, we'll save the boss for later, because exponentially speaking, like I said before, that when it comes to doing Act 3, for the sake of the forms of Detective Peach, it'll go insanely long, which is especially noticeable because we have to solve a lot of mysteries. Hopefully until specifically on the next couple of weeks, for Tuesdays and Thursdays, respectively. That's basically though, hopefully we should able to actually keep things a little bit more shorter for the later parts to come, although at least for now anyway. So, and as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that we need to able to actually use up to 25 sparkle gems in order to able to actually access this door. So, at least to be more specifically, leads us to the next boss. So, but then again, we'll save that for later, because for now, we can now able to actually use the star lift, so that way the fast travel is not so much of an issue this time. So, it makes the entire process a lot more quicker. So, anyway, let's just go ahead and find the Detective Sparkler right here, and it's right next to that particular Cowgirl Sparkler right there. So, either way, I think this is actually going to be the 6th Sparkler that we must able to rescue for. Because as far as I'm aware, is that as soon as we're able to proceed into the 5th floor coming up, then obviously though we can able to potentially try to rescue the final 4 of those sparklers before you're able to do with all anything else like that. So, but then again, sometimes it might take a bit while when it comes to able to be completing several of plays, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, you probably get the idea of what I was expecting to mention about that. So anyway, so here we are in the forms of in Act 3 of Detective Peach, and as far as I'm aware, yeah, this particular play is going to be pretty dang long. So because of that, though, it's filled to the brim with a lot of NPCs. They act out as disguises, and also puzzle solving we need to solve, and on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that we must think carefully, so just in case we can able to just, well, solve some clues clearly. So, oh yeah, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, speaking of something like My Little Pony related, is that I can't believe by saying this is about the fact that, well, it wasn't until for the sake of tomorrow anyway, that exponentially one of those specific episodes in Season 4, called Equestria Games, that is almost inspired by the Olympic Games for the actual Olympic events. But despite the fact that that episode is most likely focused on Spike the Dragon, now as far as I'm aware, that particular episode is going to be 10 years old until tomorrow. And while looking back on that particular episode though, I thought it was okay. I mean, it's not the greatest in the world. I mean, I totally get about the forms of the character development when it comes to Spike focus. But aside from all that stuff though, I just really wish if I can able to see some exciting events on screen, ranging from specifically, I would say, going through rings or going through loops or anything else like that, and that's as far as I can try to say about that. And exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that I believe that until next week, on the other hand, that Season 4 finale, specifically Twilight's Kingdom, both parts 1 and 2, until next week anyway, those two episodes combined is also going to be 10 years old until next week. And yeah, we'll save that particular topic if, assumingly, that we're able to actually save that particular topic if we do some more Let's Plays until eventually at some point. Whilst, you know, eventually that Piglet, you know, finishes up everything on mission mode in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, basically. So, yeah, I'm very optimistic about this. So, anyway, so let's just turn these little heads around, so just in case it actually focuses towards us, so that way that pretty much gives us a bit of a clue. But that doesn't end off here, because we need to turn those heads as in the left direction, because I get the strong feeling that if you try to do this combination, then something is about to happen right onto the next floor. So, before we do that, we need to open up the treasure chests, so just in case for grabbing some more coins. So, yeah, despite the fact that, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, during the forms have been, on Tuesday, that I come across into the first death of the playthrough, because I was just basically just double checking on specific sightseeing, in case if I actually missed something or not. But, then again though, we'll be back for several stages eventually, until whenever I decide able to, well, you know what I mean. So, anyway though, so as you can see, we somehow got ourselves yet another ribbon. So, I think, suffice to say, that basically does it for the majority of some parts for now. And now we need to focus on puzzle solving by trying to able to actually pay attention to the forms of, you see these dots on that particular display? Well, we have to go for these specific light stuff in a chronological order. Like, for instance, there's the number 1 clue right here. And I believe number 2 is actually going to be with that particular pink diamond, or should I say a chaos emerald, although not literally though, it's just literally pink crystal as what it says on here. So yeah, that's number 2. And I believe number 3, it was actually on that other room that we've already been into. So yeah, we'll investigate that for right now. I mean, yeah, for the most part, though, to me, though, the Detective Peach is actually not too bad. It's just about the fact that you have to able to think carefully, so that way you can able to figure out the true identity, and on top of that, you can able to actually do some clever thinking for certain puzzle skills. So, at least if I was assuming so. So, either way. Also, I just want to point out as well, is that, generally speaking though, is that we've actually got ourselves a new poster recently for the likes of the forms of those series that is usually called Jurassic World Chaos Fury, which as a result is about to be releasing on Netflix until a day after Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake, ironically enough. Although, relatively speaking, I honestly have no idea if I was able to actually double check on that though. Well, I suppose that's interesting to say the least, but either way. So, it looks like, no matter what though, that particular junior detective did somehow acting kind of strange recently. Oh, wait a minute, something tells me it's all about the testing, isn't it? So, as you can see, we've actually come across into 4 replicas of the forms of Detective Sparkler. So, the only questioning that is that we need to find the real one. So, which one is the real one out of the 4? If I can recall, according to the forms of the colored noses, basically though, the red, yellow, and blue ones are basically fake. Because as far as I'm aware, the orange nose is actually the real one. So, we must do this, and exponentially, we've somehow passed. So, yeah, too easy, especially noticeable, because whenever I first got to there, I found it was pretty simple. So, oh, there's something I want to point out as well. If you do somehow manage to come across into the first death of the entire game so far, or if you somehow run out of your hearts, basically though is about the fact that not only you lose 10 coins, but also the good thing about this though is that the checkpoints are super generous, especially noticeable. Thankfully though, you don't have to worry about going all the way back to the beginning of the play. Although, unlike in its predecessor, which appears to be Super Princess Peach, where if you lose all of your health, then obviously though you get kicked out of the level, and you have to restart the entire stage again. So that will be pretty punishing if you manage to able to work hard enough for not only for its exploration, but it's also about the fact that if you really want to go up for the challenge by going for some very tricky levels here and there, which I'm sure enough that we'll get into more details on that particular game at some point in the future, once we finish up with this game first. So, either way, so now we've come across into 2 identical rooms filled to the brim with those identical furnitures, including certain stuff as well. But as soon as we go back onto that previous room right here, after that particular Detective Sparkler did somehow take a photo of that particular room that we somehow went into, now we must pay attention to this right here for this whole comparison between not only the room we're currently onto right now, but even with the picture as well. Do you notice something different for this point right here? Well, if you look closely, basically, this particular object right here, which appears to be with this box crate with the magnifying glass statue, is the real answer. Because, again, if you check on the wrong furniture, then obviously, though, you lose one of your hearts. So, oh yeah, let's talk about the forms of one of those specific things you can able to actually accept, and that's what appears to be the heart charm, where basically though if you talk to one of those people specifically on the first floor, basically though if you talk to one of the persons, basically though it actually offers you to able to actually get yourselves a heart charm, where basically what that does is that basically though it actually gives you 3 additional hearts, making a grand total of 8. So yeah, basically, it's like an easy mode, basically. So, it is also very similar to as the forms of assist mode from the likes of in Super Mario Odyssey. And on top of that, there was also with the forms of, if I recall correctly, although it has been quite some time since I actually have last played some Nintendo Switch games. Well, exponentially about the fact that we are still playing Princess Peach Showtime after all. But anyways, I think this is the final section right here, where we somehow come across into Junior Detective, where, as far as I'm aware, he's basically acting strange, as I said before, because it looks like we got able to figure out who is the, well, it's a bit tricky to say, because obviously I'm trying to able to focus on specific dialogue of what is going on, so yeah, I'm pretty sure that, Junior Detective is actually going to be a betrayal or anything else like that. So, but then again, we have to pay attention to that particular in-game dialogue here. So just in case, we'll find out the real answer to this. Alright, so we're now on to the one final question. And he mentions the grape character, and basically... Oh jeez, it looks like he was just cut to the point. So, I'm pretty sure Junior Detective is acting strange. So, yeah, we must able to actually talk to him. And it looks like, yeah, I think he's gonna be a betrayer after all. Because no matter what though, we can no longer trust him. And actually, as it turns out, it was actually a disguise all along. So, yeah, that was interesting. But apart from those aside things though, we did somehow claim ourselves the 5th and the final Sparkle Gem, but also we can now leave. And I'm very still surprised about the fact I did somehow manage able to complete every single Detective Peach act, no problem, within likely on the first attempt. So yeah, no issues there, because it's a good thing I did manage able to practice this on my practice separate file, so just in case I can able to actually memorize of what I'm supposed to do. So there we go. So now we've actually done with that, and exponentially we've only got about 4 more sparklers we need to rescue, but that wasn't until whenever we get into the 5th floor, that is. So yeah, that won't be for a while at this point. So anyway, there's also another thing I was surprisingly forgot to mention about, is that during the films within the first episode of Knuckles the series, one thing I do actually really like about that particular episode, on the first episode, the Warrior, before the actual series starts, basically though, I love the actual montage of how the fact that there was actually a recap of Knuckles' introduction for the Sonic Cinematic Universe. And on top of all that stuff though, they basically reused the actual exact same clips as in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. And also I do really love the beginning portion of that scene where Knuckles is actually in the obstacle course, and basically though is trying to able to replicate the actual level he's going to. Like for instance, I love there was actually a gold plate at the end, and relatively speaking I was about the fact I just love the sense of several references, just like the forms of how it does it in not only Sonic the Hedgehog movie 1, but also with Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie as well. So hopefully for the 3rd Sonic movie we'll continue that tradition. So despite the fact that we have to still have to able to try to get used to with licensed music from any other like properties in the past, so yeah, there might be still abundance of pop culture licensed music from time to time. So yeah, it's a bit weird still, but it takes me for quite some time. So anyway, and as far as what I was going to be pointing out, is that I love the actual scene where basically not only in the forms within the actual the cave bit, for not only with Sonic but also with Tails and Knuckles, Sonic still has the actual car as a bed, and as far as Tails is concerned, he now actually got a plane on the bed. And finally, for Knuckles, he does have himself the actual, let's just say, carry truck or something as a bed. So, yeah, that's actually quite interesting. So, I'm guessing about the fact that the more characters will be added to the cinematic universe of Sonic, then obviously, though, is about the fact that they'll try to make even more beds or something. Well, it's a bit tricky to tell at this point, because no matter what though, I really don't think there's going to be a possibility if Sonic the Hedgehog 4, the movie, is going to happen anytime soon, because as far as I've heard anyway, that the 3rd entry will be the last film of the entire Sonic movie trilogy or something. Well, then again, we shall see what happens in due time. Now, I suppose, before we get into more details about the films of the final topic at this point today, because as it turns out, here's our next boss fight we're going to be fighting against. And as it turns out, it's actually a spotlight, but it actually turns out it's more specific. And as it turns out, it's Spotlion, because get it with the fusion of lion and, especially noticeable with spotlights as well. So this is where the boss gets a little bit tricky, but honestly though, this boss is also ridiculously easy. So basically though, all you have to do is basically you have to use the sparkle ribbon to able to actually reflect on that particular projectiles back at him. However, you have to do this for about 3 times, and eventually at some point, he will change the layout, similar to the forms of how it does it in disco wing at one point. Although the noticeable difference is that you need to try to reflect the actual projectile back at Spotlion on specific angles. And once you've done so with that, as usual, we have to mash the B button, so just in case you can to actually deal with the one of the faces. So yeah, everything else will become to expect. Oh yeah, eventually at some point that he will start to actually decide to activate devastating attacks at one point. To be more specifically, the lasers that he's going to be shooting at some point eventually if he goes back up. So yeah, he's going to try to turn into a different, I don't know what you would call it, but either way, yeah, that was the laser I was talking about. So basically we have to avoid the laser at all costs, so just in case you don't want to get hit a lot. So but eventually at some point on phase 3 of this fight, I'm pretty sure this is where the actual fight itself gets a lot more challenging. Especially noticeable, you need to pay attention on the background, at least to be more specifically when it comes to the forms of the reflections in the background. So, but then again, we'll point things out if we get on to the third and final phase. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward for the most part, at least if you pretty much know what to do. And yeah, as you can tell, he decides to actually not only trying to send in some more triangular platform obstacles, but also, get this, he decides to act out as double team basically. So basically though, he decided to activate a duplicate of himself to make things a little bit tricky. But if you pay attention to the background that you see on this little white silhouette of Spotlion, you can definitely tell if you pay attention to the silhouette in the background, that signifies that's real. However, if it does not have the white silhouette in the background for one of those Spotlions, that actually signifies that's a fake. So because of that though, yeah, you have to pay attention to the real one because that actually deals some bit of damage. However, if you accidentally attack the fake one, I believe it will just disappear. So that's the only thing I can possibly think about. But that doesn't stop there though, because he will decide to summon not 3 but 4 more Spotlions, as well. Usually he summons 3 fake Spotlions. So yeah, and eventually at some point he just goes back into single. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit tricky, especially noticeable about the fact that specifically on the third and final phase. But when you get the hang of it though, it's actually not too shabby. So anyway, I suppose there's, you know, as I said before, there's going to be one last thing I want to mention about in terms of the forms of today's discussion, is that recently Star Wars Hunters has finally given ourselves the actual release date, and as it turns out, it's going to be releasing at some point in June, specifically June 4th. So as a result, in this year. So because of that though, yeah, as a result, it feels like that any other Nintendo Switch games up to this point has pretty much all settled for the sake of the forms of some Switch games as of now. So because of that though, yeah, that's as far as I can try to talk about it. And I suppose technically there's also one last final thing I want to point out, is that I think Hi-Fi Rush for Switch has been rated by Peggy. So, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Peggy 12, I'm pretty sure. Even though despite the fact that the actual Switch version of Hi-Fi Rush hasn't exactly got announced yet. But eventually at some point they will. Eventually. Well, time will tell at this point, because obviously though, we're still on the forms of a waiting game basically. So because of that though, but I'm still basically excited for the sake of 3 more weeks to come for the likes of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door basically. So because of that, and I'm not exactly sure how many days we've got left for not only Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, but also with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD's releasing as far as I'm aware. So again, we shall see what happens. So anyways, and as you can see, we can now able to actually access to every single floors up to this point, because as far as I'm aware, the 5th floor might be considered as to be the final floor we can go into. So generally speaking now is about the fact that, of course, just like always, we can able to actually access to rehearsals at one point, but then again, I'll save those for later. So Anyways, so we actually got ourselves the Spotlion dress, so we're able to equip that. And also we got ourselves a pretty fancy looking detective dress right here. So yeah, we'll use the Spotlion dress for now on. So just in case that again, we'll show off some different variety. So, and as far as I'm aware, we haven't exactly unlocked for one of those selectable menus on the actual pause menu. But then again though, we'll point things out until for later, because as far as I'm aware, we're not exactly done with this just yet. So, anyways, let's go into the 5th floor, which pretty much leads us to the majority of Act 2 for some remaining plays. So those are Mermaid Peach, and Mighty Peach, and Figure Skater Peach, and finally Kung Fu Peach, basically. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Princess Peach Showtime. Is that we're about to start able to explore into floor 5. So yeah, this should be interesting. Oh, and also we have some fireworks in the background now. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Later, fellas.